This is the video for 5-6, and we are talking about the difference between parallel and perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are lines that lie on the same plane but never intersect. So parallel lines will have different y-intercepts, but their slopes are going to be the same. Perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect to form right angles. The slopes of perpendicular lines are going to be opposite reciprocals. Now, perpendicular lines may or may not have the same y-intercept, but their slopes are always going to be opposite reciprocals. What exactly is an opposite reciprocal? Opposite reciprocals are two numbers whose product equals -1. So, for example, 1/3 and -3/1 are opposite reciprocals because when I multiply them together, they equal -1. Let's look at example number 1, writing an equation of a parallel line. A line passes through 12, 5 and is parallel to the graph of y equals 2/3x minus 1. What is the equation of the line? Okay, so what do I know? I have this mystery line here, and I don't know what the equation is, but what do I know? I know it has a point of 12, it has an xy coordinate of 12, 5. Well, what else do I know about this mystery line? I know it's parallel to this line. So, if it's parallel, the slope is going to be the same. Okay, so now I know a point and I know the slope. So as long as I know one point and I know the slope, I can now create an equation of the line. And none of this is new. This part you have already been doing before. And there are multiple different ways to do this. You can use this formula, or you can use this formula. It doesn't matter. Whichever one you feel more comfortable with. I'm going to go ahead and use this formula. I think that one can be more efficient, but it does not matter. You should get the same answer. So what am I going to do? I'm going to plug in my xy coordinate, and I'm going to plug in my slope, and I'm going to solve for b. Now I know b, now I know the slope. And so I can create the equation of the line. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and solve this one on your own. Okay, let me work this out for you. A line passes through this point, so I have an xy coordinate, and I know it's parallel to this line, so I know the slope is going to be the same. So now what do? I'm going to go ahead and plug it into this equation. So I'm going to plug in my xy coordinate, I'm going to plug in my slope, once I found b, I can go ahead and create the equation because now I know my slope and I know my y-intercept, and so I can create the equation. Okay, so let's go to the next example. I actually want to skip 2 right now, go to example number 3. So now it says writing an equation of a perpendicular line. Okay, so now a line passes through point 2, 4. and it's perpendicular to the line y equals 1 over 3x minus 1. What is the equation? So what do I know about this mystery line? I know that it passes through the xy coordinate 2, 4. I know it's perpendicular to this line. So if it's perpendicular to that line, what do I know about the slope? The slope will be the opposite reciprocal. Okay, so now what do? I know a coordinate point, I know the slope, and so now all I need to do is to plug it into the equation and solve. And again, you can plug it into this equation or you can plug it into point slope equation. It does not matter, either one will work. But I'm going to go ahead and solve for B. My B, or my y-intercept, is 10, so what does that mean? The equation of this line has a slope of -3 and a y-intercept of 10. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and work out this one. Okay, it says a line passes through this coordinate point and it's perpendicular to this line. So if it's perpendicular to this line, what do I know about the slope of my mystery line? The slope is -1/2. So now what do? I'm going to go ahead and plug in my xy coordinate. I'm going to plug in my slope, and I'm going to solve for B. I'm going to multiply every term by 2 to remove that denominator. So my y-intercept is 17 over 2. So now I can create the equation because I know my slope is -1/2 and my y-intercept is 17 over 2. And finally, now let's go to example number 2. We have two lines and we need to determine, are these lines parallel, are they perpendicular, or are they neither? Are they just two lines that intersect at one point that are neither parallel nor perpendicular? Or sometimes you go ahead and discover they're actually the same line. So we're just trying to determine, are these lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So what am I going to do? I need to compare the slopes. Well, I know the slope of this line is 4 over 5, so I need to figure out the slope of this line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and divide every term by 4 just to get it in y equals mx plus b form so I can compare the two. Okay, so now what do I know about the slope of this line? So I know the slope of one line is 4 over 5, and I know the slope of the other line is -5 over 4. So they are opposite reciprocals. So if they are opposite reciprocals, those lines are perpendicular. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and work out these two. You're comparing these two lines here, and then you're comparing these two lines here. Okay, the slope of this line is 3 over 4. Now, remember what we said about the slope of a line that's in standard form. This is standard form. The slope of a line that's in standard form is always -a over b. So I can just look at this and I can say the slope of this line is -a A over B. So the slope of one line is 3 over 4, and the slope of the other line is 4 over 3. So what do we know about these lines now? They are neither parallel nor perpendicular. They're not the same line either, but they're not parallel and they're not perpendicular. They're just two lines that cross at one point, but they're not parallel and they're not perpendicular. Now, if you did not remember this rule here, which I strongly suggest you make a flashcard and remember that rule. If you did not remember that rule, you can go through the work of turning this equation that's in standard form into slope-intercept form, and then you can go ahead and compare the slopes. That works too. But just remembering this rule is going to make it a lot quicker for you. Okay, and then this last one, this one's fairly easy. I can just divide everything by 6 so both lines are in the same form, and then I can compare the slopes. And what do I see about their slopes? Their slopes are the same, so these lines are parallel. Okay, so go ahead and start your homework, and if you have any questions, send me an email.